Hello, Fleur. Welcome to Unleashing Brilliance. How are you today?
Wonderful. Thank you. Great to see you, Janine.
Oh, you too. It is so exciting to have this conversation here and to give listeners a chance to get to know you. I've had the joy of working with you for, a fair while now. And every single moment that we have to interact, where I get to learn more about you, helping you unpack your IP, helping you do this incredible, which we'll get to, exciting next season of your life, I'm inspired by both the woman that you are, but also the passion that you have for the work that you do. So I'm really excited to share you with more people. So thank you for trusting the process, Fleur. It is wonderful to have you here. Now, as I said in my intro, let's just jump straight into it. I shared in my intro your incredible background. On paper, you had it all. Like so many of my listeners, you've had a high-powered corporate background. You had team and clients. You're a mom. Like, you were really working at that high level, top level in the industries that you were in. And I know some of the stories that you've told me about the hours that you put in, the projects you did, many of us can relate. So I guess the curious question for our listeners is, what made you walk away from that?
As you say, Janine, I was running, or I guess in the marathon of life, ticking all the boxes, fabulous wardrobe we forgot to mention as well, killing it at work, doing the juggle, yet something inside of me was feeling pretty empty, actually. I felt exhausted, definitely, because I think the relentlessness of being in a high-powered job, traveling country to country, doing the mum job as well as just trying to, live life, the emptiness that was within me wouldn't go away. And I kept making a deal with myself just to keep going, keep pushing through. It'll get better, or I'll take that rest, or I'll manage to enjoy things when I get this done, whatever it was at the time. And what happened, Janine, it wasn't really my choice. My body was shouting and I was ignoring all the signs because I had too much to do. And then my body took the charge of me and I couldn't keep going. I got really sick. So it just put me on my bum, basically, and forced me to stop. And that's probably when I stepped back and went, hang on a minute, perhaps this isn't quite the life I had imagined.
And I think so many can relate. I know a lot of my clients that I work with have been in that position of striving for that particular position in an organization, or striving for that particular goal, or striving for that lifestyle win or that financial win. And then, throwing family and having babies or aged parents, and we're juggling so many balls. This almost unrelentless question of, is this it? Is this how I'm supposed to live my life? But as you said, your body decided to take over. And again, I know there's many people listening in where similar things have happened, but your body didn't just choose to take over. You talk about actually living every single day in the waiting room of death. Can you just add some context around that?
So I worked myself super sick, the never get better kind, and had to stop work for 2 years to navigate treatment. And unfortunately, there's no known cure for the autoimmune disease that I have. And also on top of that, I got cancer as well. So it was a double whammy. What happened was my disease spread to my brain. It was at that point the doctors said, look, you're never going to get better. This is it. Get prepared. It's, time to ready yourself for things getting a lot worse. And I've been given the gift, I guess, of sitting in this waiting room of death, I call it, where normally people get sick and get better, or they get sick and unfortunately die. And in my case, I'm very grateful to be sitting in this waiting room where I had the opportunity to kind of really process and understand how I'd ended up here, but also how I could redefine my life while I was in this waiting room. I had to redefine what success looked like for me. My definition of success, ticking all the high performer boxes, was flawed because ultimately I wasn't happy or didn't feel that sense of contentment. So when I got the news, this is it, I spent some time really trying to understand what does success really mean for me, knowing that my time here might be limited, and that really helped sharpen what matters to me. And then I guess I've had the opportunity to really think about what's my purpose, my legacy, my meaning making while I am here. And feeling this time pressure of I don't know how long I have has been a gift in so many ways, and that it's allowed me to really sharpen what that does actually look like for me and actually put it into practice in real life. I've actually had the opportunity to figure it out and then apply it. And then actually I have managed in the last 14 years to create the life. It's taken me a while to create the life I truly wanted. But at first I had no idea where to start.
So how long have you been in this waiting room now?
It's I'd say I got diagnosed 14 years ago, and it was probably about 6 years into my journey after a lot of treatment. So what's that, 8 years? Yeah, 7, 8 years.
And you talk about it being a gift, this gift of being able to process, this gift of being able to choose how you live and lead your life. What sort of things did you discover during that process? What sort of things did you learn both about yourself and reflecting on that career that give you the fire now to share? What sort of things did you learn?
First I was in denial the first couple of years. Like I kept being the eternal optimist, thinking it would turn and I'd get better. And when I found out this was my prognosis, I had to really sit with and practice something called radical acceptance and really understand that and let go of the mum I wanted to be, the career I wanted to have, the big status titles, the stuff, that I had to really accept that I was in this body and that my life as it is now, it is what it is. And so for me, it was a real journey of acceptance, but also self-compassion and self-love, which probably is, has paid off more than any green juice will ever, because lots of people said just to take care of your body. But actually I needed to do the inner work, the work on me, and understand how to be kind to myself, how to put myself first, to take care of me in a way that was sustainable, but also in a way that came from a place of compassion and love. And I think before I was probably quite hard on myself. I had very high standards, unrelenting standards. And I think it was this real permission piece to own who I am as I am and to do me, but also to embrace my reality and show up. And any day that I could get up out of bed and be of service to others and help others not end up like me, but also as a mum, just being fully present to each day rather than this sort of forward state of thinking about when or whatever. It was just really about being in the moment. So that was a huge lesson for me.
And for our listeners, it's the thing about you is you still haven't stopped. So whilst this evolution has happened for you in terms of this radical acceptance, the work that you're now doing, the things that you stand on stage and speak about, the work that you're engaged to do in corporates, you still live and breathe this self-compassion and self-love. And again, you've done this without stopping. You built an online store called the Wellbeing Store. You had bricks and mortar businesses. You were out there running training programs, coaching, standing on stages, despite this place that you are living in terms of this waiting room and death, and equally doing all of that whilst maintaining this self-love and self-compassion. So before we move into what you're noticing and how your message is so important for those that are running their own businesses or those that are in leadership, what does self-compassion and self-love look like for you? Because like you said, everyone goes, look after your body, great juices, but it's so much more than that.
I think, first of all, I have to own my ambition. I'm not someone who will sit still. I love being amongst it. I love people. I love helping others. And so I channeled into what's my purpose, and while I'm here, what does that look like for me? And I don't think I'm ever going to slow down really, like, completely. So I've had to work out self-compassion practices that I can bookend in my day, each day, every day as a practice. So for me, self-compassion is taking a 10-minute break during the day. So for me, self-compassion is taking care of my body at the gym. Self-compassion for me is sitting and I sit for a silent tea ceremony a couple of times a week, full Japanese tea ceremony, just to slow down and gain my perspective back. Self-compassion for me is doing things, hanging out with people that I love and having fun and enjoying the ride, because if this is it, I need to make sure I enjoy it too. So I kind of balance my, I guess, natural work ethic with enjoyment and lightness and fun and wearing sequins because I can, and not caring about so much the small stuff or what other people think of me. And just really, self-compassion is owning my sort of crazy wild self, but also my ambition that pushes me every day to get up and make a difference and do something with the time I've got.
Yeah, I love that. And I love this concept of owning your ambition. What would you say to our listeners around that concept? Because I know you talk a lot about this, and particularly to women, about own your ambition. What does that actually mean to you? What's your message for people around that?
So for me, it was figuring out, how do I still be ambitious but not do it at the cost of me? Because I'd always self-sacrificed. I'd always given all of myself out to everyone, every role, whatever, and me last. And so I had to learn, how do I balance my ambition with actually not it taking me out, literally. And so I actually have figured out how to do it in a way that, one, I'm doing what I enjoy, what I love. So that definitely fills my cup. But secondly, I make sure that there's space and capacity for me to fill my cup and to really tune into my gut. If something isn't feeling right and I'm striving and it feels like I'm efforting too hard and it's just feeling difficult, I'm really checking in constantly with what my gut's telling me, my gut brain, and going, okay, maybe this, I need to let go of this. This is working for me. Maybe this ambition or this belief that I've got right now isn't serving me and it's costing me. So I'm constantly checking in with my inner narrative, my gut, and then also making sure there's space and capacity. I work less hours and deliver more impact because I'm really focused on what matters and doing things that I know are meaning making, but also that bring me contentment and joy.
Yeah, I love it. And in terms of, so you do a lot of work now directly in organizations, working with leaders to essentially help shift that paradigm and essentially the well-being of that leadership workforce. And you speak a lot about this, and I know you're in the process of writing a book and sharing this concept around the overachiever's dilemma through your story. What are you noticing? If you look at where you're at in the waiting room of death, this gift, as you call it, of being able to live life, to own your ambition, to self-love and have self-compassion, being in that place and watching and seeing what you notice in the work that you do, this passion to share your learnings, this gift that you've been given, what is driving it? What are you noticing this? Making you go on a rant and a mission.
Well, I'm noticing in room that leaders are showing up completely exhausted, without perspective or clarity, that there's a belief system out there, whether it's within the individual leader or within the organization, that high performance equals pushing and doing more, that somehow we're going to get through this to-do list and all the things that are on that leadership is self-sacrifice, that mostly high-performing leaders are actually running on empty. So when I'm in room, probably the biggest gift I can give them is space and capacity to just slow it down, catch their breath, take perspective, but also get to do some of the inner work. I don't think a lot of leaders have had the space to even think about, how am I showing up? They're just running literally on empty, from thing to thing, meeting to meeting, deadline to deadline, delivery to delivery. And so therefore they're not really catching themselves and taking a moment to see how that's showing up for themselves as leaders, but also for others. So I think it's really getting them to understand the inner narrative. What's the story they're telling themselves? Why are they pushing themselves to the point of losing themselves in the process? And then really understanding what their leadership ambition looks like and how they're going to put in the right practices or disciplines to keep themselves, find a better way that's a bit more sustainable so they don't opt out or they don't burn out or they don't end up sick like me. So it's sort of really helping them catch it and reset.
Are you finding, from what you're noticing, is it a generational thing or is it just everywhere?
I think there's a bit of generational difference, definitely. I think, I was in room with the younger generation who there was one person who said, look, I'm not working 5 minutes past 5 o'clock because that's what I get paid to. And I'll do it 2 times a week, but no more than 10 minutes. And they're not prepared to sacrifice in the way that perhaps the other generations have known, work hard, play hard kind of mentality, certainly in the industries I work in. So but I also think there's this overwhelm with the younger generation around what to focus on, how to do it. They're looking up to the older generations, their bosses, their leaders, and they don't want to be like them. So I think they're looking for a better way too. They just don't know how to do that. They feel this sense of pressure and overwhelm and just getting lost in it and still figuring out who they are within that and what they want to do.
So I'm curious, again, just to delve into what you're noticing. There's multiple generations at work, all navigating this really challenging adaptive world that we are in right now. And I'm seeing it myself with 3 bigger children entering the workforce and trying to balance all things. And then equally, being at the age that I am, I can absolutely relate to this work hard, play hard mentality that almost is an unconscious rule book that's really hard to break. I'm curious, when you're in room, particularly with, high achieving leaders who have been programmed unconsciously to work in that way, how do you get them to identify? You talk about this inner work. How do you get people to stop and to actually reconnect with their purpose and what's important? And what is the response to that process? I don't know if you've got any examples of the shift that it has made for some of your clients.
I think the inner work that I get them to do is to understand what shaped them to be the leader they are today. And that can be from, we learn leadership through others, whether it's from our parenting or, key influences in our life or the bosses that we've had. So I get them to understand what shaped them. Then I get them to understand what beliefs, limiting or otherwise, are driving them to push to exhaustion or to push them to a point where they're perhaps feeling not so contented. And then I get them to reshape that. So to think about, well, if I was here to make impact, what does impact look like for me? And almost give them permission not to try and do it all, but to actually think, okay, if I did 3 things this year and made real impact, what is that going to be? So really sharpen their focus. And then I get them to chunk it down and think about, well, how can I do that quarter by quarter or by, role to help them get there? And I had a senior leader last year who had lost his mojo. He was in line to become the next CEO, but was questioning whether he wanted to even be that. He didn't want to end up being like the CEOs he'd seen before him, but he'd also lost his sense of self and the leadership journey. He's a high performer. So I got him back to thinking about what mattered to him, what was his core value system, and got him to really think about how could he redefine the role of a CEO, that just because the leaders before him had been, not necessarily aspirational to him, that what would that look like for him? Could he do it differently because people and culture mattered to him? And then I got him to really think about the legacy he wanted to leave behind if he took on a senior role, but also not the legacy just for his work, but for his children and for his people he loved around him, that what was the impact he wanted to make in his life. And that helped him recenter back to what mattered. And actually he's just flying now. Like he's just taken this whole ambition, but he's doing it without it being at the cost of him. He's doing it from a sense of self and a sense of clarity. And I think that's allowed him to then be really clear on what he wanted to ask for in his next role and what he wanted to define as how he was going to make it his. So I don't know if that answers your question fully, but it's giving, I mean, often it's just space giving, as you know, Janine, like it's just sometimes, but also giving them practical tools that they can use immediately. If it's too hard, it's very hard to change behavior. It's very hard and we're all tired. So how do you give people, really simple tools that they can just start to practice immediately, just to give them that little window of clarity or perspective or meaning making?
You talked there about that particular client and curiosity around legacy impact leaving. Why is this work so important to you?
Well, I don't know how long I have here and it's not going away, my reality. So for me, I think I want my very long road and the hard lessons I've learned to be someone else's short road, right? I want to help people not end up like me as a real driving force, and for my children too, who've watched me, burn myself out time and time again. So I wanted to master it for me first. And I had to do that first, was I had to walk my own talk. And then now it's more about just making sure that with any leader that I am lucky enough to come across, to help support them to figure out a better way, and for them where it's sustainable, they don't lose themselves in the process, and that they can actually just own who they are and show up more authentically, not wear a mask, not try and be something they're not meet this unrelenting standard that's never going to be realized, and just really enjoy. I mean, for me, conscious joy has been a real part of what I bring into a room now, which is this real sense of self and joy and contentment that means I can show up authentically as me, but also enjoy it. I only do what I love now. I actually say no to lots of things, but I just want to make sure that every moment I am in room is meaning making, but also that I enjoy the ride as well. So I get a lot from the leaders too.
Yeah. And you have to consciously say yes and no, because as we've talked about in our conversations, you can be in room and deliver an awesome 2, 3, 4 days of content for other people, and your passion is driving you, but your recovery because of your health takes that little bit longer. So it's this intentionality around working with clients that are committed to a different way of leading, knowing that different way will absolutely positively impact their teams, impact their results, impact their performance. So I love your intentionality around that. If we were writing, and I know you're writing a book, we'll have to get you back on when that book gets published. Your story is, and there's so much more to it. You're very humble when you share your story. I really encourage our listeners to see if they can hear your story. I got you to speak at my event, and it touches people, and your courage, your bravery, your passion, but this legacy piece that you want to leave. You've said it a few times today. I don't want people, I want to shortcut what has been a long journey for me for other people. So if you were writing the new rules for leadership, if you had the chance to share your message with the world, what has to change? What are the fundamental things that we as individuals, as either leaders now or emerging leaders, as people running our own businesses, what do we have to do differently in your mind?
Well, probably one that I am constantly working on for myself as well is you're enough already as you are. That owning who you are and how you are as you are right now, and how you show up as you, on good days, bad days, when you're feeling tired, whatever, exhausted, that's okay. That you're enough exactly as you are, that the efforting piece that comes in when you don't feel enough, that's where some of the costs come. And if you can own that, that will really filter through to your team and to those around you. The second one is vulnerability. I used to always try and be perfect. And I think there's real connection in not having all the answers as a leader and being vulnerable. I got this wrong. When you do make those mistakes, or when you do not quite get it right, to really be open and vulnerable with your team that, hey, this is a struggle moment for me. I didn't quite get this right, but I'm working on it. Or this is what I'm working on to be an even better leader. Or this is where I'm at right now and I need your help. So I think, being vulnerable. And I think the third thing is being really clear on what matters and focusing on that with single-mindedness, because trying to do it all and tick off that to-do list completely each day, or get through all your emails, whatever that thing is that you're trying to complete, that actually just to do less well, 3 things a day. If you can do 3 amazing things a day, that's enough. So I think really focusing in on what matters and not letting the urgent or the noise or the busy take control, and really being single-minded about, okay, if I did one thing, or how can I be most effective today? What's that one thing I can do? And do that first rather than all the other stuff that's demanding attention, because then you'll get the sense of progression and a sense of fulfillment, but also you'll also then move things forward rather than having to do your real work at night or feel like you're never quite achieving what you want to. Those are, I guess, my 3 things. I think there was 3.
Yes, I think there was 3. I love that efforting is where the cost is. Fleur, I have to ask, as we sort of get to the end of this conversation, if people are watching you now on YouTube, there's so much joy that emanates from you. And I don't think I've ever, in the time that I've worked with you, seen you not smiling. This conscious joy is such a part of you. I can't even begin to imagine what it must feel like to live in this waiting room of death, where, you've got beautiful children doing remarkable things. You recently renewed your vows with your beautiful husband. 25 years, I just got goosebumps, you renewed your vows. How do you stay there with so much grace and so much joy?
Oh, I think I'm kind to myself. I think it's probably the simplest answer. And I wobble off all the time. I forget. I have an invisible illness, so even I forget when I rock up to hospital, I go, oh, that's right. I've learned to navigate pain and really navigate my mind and get my mind and body to work as one. And I think just for me, self-kindness, but also daily practices, that it's the small shifts that made the biggest impact to me. And I have to keep checking in, have I wobbled off again because I go shiny, or, something excites me and I'm off down another path, or I don't know. So I just have to keep bringing myself back constantly. And I have people like you, I have you as my coach, I have my therapist, and I have a couple of really important people who keep me grounded and on the path. So I don't wobble off too much now. And I just practice what I preach, really. And I just feel so lucky to be here, but I have hard days. I have bad days, of course. There's days where I lose faith and hope, and I do. And I go down the dark lane of pity. And so I just keep bringing myself back to my present self and to what I can control and what I can't control and what matters, and then kind of just try and laugh it off or go for a walk or hang out with Mother Nature and not let it hold me or own me as much as it perhaps used to, this drive, and just try and find a way to kind of recalibrate constantly.
Yeah, you've got such bravery and such courage. And as you've said to me a couple of times, you've come to accept what is going to happen at some point. And your point around that's the gift as well, because it makes you live and breathe and do the work that you're doing. What is the legacy you're leaving?
Well, I guess, I was just thinking when you said that I'm always smiling, and I remember Miles Young, he was the global CEO of Ogilvy, where I used to work. He used to call me the happy warrior, and that was before I got sick. I think my legacy is helping people find a better way to lead sustainably, authentically, as their true self, and to also help my children to understand what it means to live a full life and to own who they are, and this enough piece that they're enough as they are, and no matter what happens in this world for them. And I think, I feel like this gift piece where I've managed to master something that worked for me, this kind of blueprint around how to lead with ambition without it being at the cost of you. I want it to impact, to help as many people as possible, and that I constantly pivoted and improved and myself practice what I'm talking about, but also helped others get there. Because once you unlock this way of being, there's no going back. And I guess once you experience it, it shifts something within you. So I think for me, let's get my book or me and be in front of room, but not at the cost of me, but always taking care of me on the journey, but to help as many people figure out their leadership system that allows them to do this well is my legacy for sure. And I think I've already done it, to be honest, but so now it's just all bonus stuff, right?
Yeah. And I can't wait for this book. We can't even share a title yet because it's currently with a number of publishers in the hope that someone will publish it. So if there's any publishers listening to this, make sure to reach out. Fleur, I just want to thank you for being you, for the gift of you, for the incredible support that you give to others, but also through how you are living and leading and how that is creating such a ripple for other people to follow. And anybody listening here right now who may be feeling wobbly themselves, maybe feeling like they're at brink of burnout or they're in burnout or they're just not coping, highly recommend that you check out Fleur's work, whether it's about getting some one-on-one support or even bringing Fleur into your organizations to get your teams and your leaders to start thinking differently, because there is a better way. This overachiever's dilemma is making too many people either invisibly sick or outwardly sick, and it's up to us to lead the way. Thank you so much, Fleur. Sending you so much love, and keep doing the awesome work that you're doing, because you are a gift to all of us and so many.
Thank you, Janine.
Thank you.